So the colour has been trooped, the ceremony's complete.
This week, a scaled-down trooping the colour in Windsor. Some good news for William.
I'm really pleased that you guys are all coming back to football soon.
And a brand new first for the Queen.
I'm very glad to have been able to join you today.
Welcome to the Royal Report, everyone. I'm your host, Sharon Carpenter, and it's been another busy week for the royal family, so let's get right to the news. Like most sporting events, Prince Harry's Invictus Games were postponed this year. However, on Wednesday, the organization released a webinar showing that their message of resilience may be more important than ever. During the 2-hour video, originally recorded in May, the Duke shared some encouraging words with the foundation's community of wounded service personnel and veterans.
This conversation is all about sharing the Invictus spirit, and it is even more relevant now as we are having to address new challenges and adapt our lives. I hope that all the nations, competitors, and family and friends are coping well and supporting each other through this time. And I know you'll be showing that resilience, which is so central to the Invictus community.
On Thursday, as part of Carers Week in the UK, the royal family shared a portion of the Queen's first ever public video chat with a group of caregivers. Her Majesty, who was joined by Princess Anne, took a moment to salute their selfless work.
Interesting listening to all your tales and stories, and I'm very impressed by what you have achieved already. So I'm very glad to have been able to join you today.
That same day, Prince William spoke with several coaches and players from the Arsenal soccer team about his mental health initiative, Heads Up. During a portion of the call shared on social media, the Duke discussed how he hopes the campaign will have an even greater impact this year.
I'm really pleased that you guys are all coming back to football soon. And as you can see behind me, I've got the FA Cup. It's going to be named the Heads Up FA Cup, which is great news. So we're going to really use the final as a moment to promote good, positive mental health for everyone.
On Saturday, the Queen celebrated her official birthday with a scaled-down ceremony at Windsor Castle.
This is the moment, Hugh, when there is some eye contact between the gods and Her Majesty. It is, for each of them, a special moment.
And yes, if you're really lucky, you'll catch the twinkle in Her Majesty's eye.
Normally, this is one of the biggest, if not the biggest date on the royal calendar, the annual Trooping the Colour. But sadly, the festivities were cancelled this year due to COVID-19. So instead, we got a much more subdued version, which began around 11 a.m. and lasted roughly 20 minutes. After a moving rendition of God Save the Queen and a series of military formations, the field officer in charge approached Her Majesty to mark the conclusion of the ceremony.
So the colour has been trooped, the ceremony's complete. The field officer approaches Her Majesty to let her know the guards are ready to march off.
Your Majesty's Guard is ready to march off, ma'am.
It's just not the same without getting to see the royal family all together on the balcony. Hopefully, we'll be back to normal next year. On Tuesday, Charles and Camilla travelled to the Gloucestershire Royal Hospital for their first public outing since government-ordered lockdowns began in March. The royal couple adhered to social distancing protocols while expressing their thanks to the healthcare workers who have kept the hospital running during the COVID-19 crisis. Charles and Camilla weren't the only ones returning to public duties on Tuesday, as William visited an ambulance station at Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Kings Lynn. Making his first public appearance in 3 months, the Duke praised the first responders for their work throughout the coronavirus pandemic. And finally, Tuesday also marked the start of one of the Queen's favourite events of the year, Royal Ascot. This highly anticipated annual week of horse racing dates back to 1911. And this year it will be held for the first time without fans in attendance. But of course, the races will be televised, so undoubtedly the Queen will be watching from Windsor Castle. All right, now let's introduce today's guest, People's Senior Royals editor, Michelle Tauber. Michelle, so good to see you. How are you doing?
So great to see you, Sharon. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Now, as we mentioned earlier, Trooping the Color would have been this past Saturday, but because of COVID-19, we're missing out on one of our favorite royal events of the year. So instead, we've asked you to come share a few of your favorite Trooping the Color moments from years past. These can be highlights, images, trivia, whatever you like, basically a list of your favorite things about the events. And you've got 7 of them, is that right?
That's right, and I cannot wait to go through them.
Great, but first I want to talk about the event itself. Trooping the Color is a 270-year-old, or 272-year-old to be exact, ceremony held on the second Saturday of June to celebrate the monarch's birthday, but it's not actually Queen Elizabeth's birthday. That was back on April 21st. So Michelle, tell us, why does the Queen get 2 birthdays?
Well, I mean, obvious starting point. She's the queen, so I think we can just hand it to any monarch. The monarch wants 2 birthdays. The monarch gets 2 birthdays. But there is a historical precedent for it. It actually began in 1748 under King George II, and the reasoning was that his actual birthday was in November, but we all know, I know you know better than any, that the weather in November in London would be what, not ideal birthday party weather?
Not great, not great.
Right, so he instead decided, okay, I'm gonna have this military parade procession in the lovely springtime, which is why we now have this double celebration, weather reasons.
Okay, now today, what does the event entail? Because most of us think of those iconic images of the royal family standing together on the palace balcony, but there's a lot more than a photo op, right? Last year's ceremony lasted 2.5 hours. So what all goes on?
Yeah, there's quite a bit involved in Trooping the Color, starting with the Queen's own military involvement. Many people might not realize that the Queen is considered the colonel-in-chief of the 5 foot guard troops, and those are the troops that serve the sovereign, that's the Queen, directly. So she has her own military title, which is kind of, again, this is a military parade that we're watching. And as you said, Sharon, it does have quite a few steps, and it begins with the Queen going from Buckingham Palace along the Mall to Horse Guards Parade. And that's an area that's inside St. James's Park. And when the Queen is in there, she's meeting with the troops. And in fact, she used to do that part of the parade on horseback herself. But since 1987, she has done it in a carriage. So after the Queen visits Horse Guards Parade, she then does a military salute, inspects the troops, and then rides back to Buckingham Palace at the head of all the soldiers. She then is joined by the rest of the royal family, and this is the moment you mentioned, the iconic moment on the Buckingham Palace balcony, where we see all the key members of the royal family all gathered on the balcony for what is known as the fly past. And if you've seen it before, you may remember that this is when they all look up, right? At that one key moment, we get to see, the bottoms of everyone's royal chins, and it's a really spectacular moment. And what makes this moment so special is that it's kind of a de facto royal family portrait that we can count on once a year, where we get to see all the cousins, the brothers, the fathers, it's all the generations, right? So Prince Philip, Prince Charles, his brothers, obviously William and Harry and their wives, and the children, which is really special because it's so rare that we get to see the royal children and especially get to see them interacting this way. So it's kind of the closest we get to a public royal family reunion. So it makes it really fun.
Wow, Michelle, hearing you break it all down makes me miss it even more. All right, now let's dive into your 7 favorite things, shall we? What's first?
So first up is Prince George's Trooping the Color balcony debut. And we had been filled with anticipation to see George on the balcony for the first time. Obviously, he was the first royal heir born in a generation, and this was a big moment. And it didn't disappoint because to make his balcony debut, George wore the same exact outfit that his dad, Prince William, wore in his own Trooping the Color balcony debut. So it was a really nostalgic and sentimental throwback to William's own first moment on the balcony for Trooping. And in fact, they did the same thing again, William and Kate, in a subsequent Trooping with little George, dressing George again in a throwback outfit worn by William. And this time it was an outfit that William had worn to his brother Harry's christening. So these are very deliberate style choices, even in a little baby, which you have to appreciate. And just to, I think, reinforce the connectivity between the royal generations and kind of enhance the meaning of this moment.
So cute. All right, what's next?
So next is, in fact, George's same appearance, but rather than focusing on what George was wearing, I want to talk about what we saw on the balcony when George first made his debut, and that was 3 generations of royal heirs in one place, because we know how much Queen Elizabeth prizes, you know, the continuation of her line, and that was the moment that we got to see it from her, then her direct heir Prince Charles, his direct heir Prince William, and then new baby George, who was just 22 months old at the time. We're always excited anytime we get to see the heirs assembled, like heirs assemble in public. And this was really the first true look at all of them together.
Wow, an iconic moment for sure. What's another?
The next moment is the fact that Trooping the Color gives royal fans a chance to see new royal moms for the first time, often while they're still on maternity leave. So in the case of Princess Kate, it was the first time we got to see her after the birth of Princess Charlotte back in 2015. And then more recently, last year, we got to see Meghan for the first time while she was still on maternity leave after the birth of Archie. And, you know, again, to see royal moms on maternity leave at a time when they would otherwise be, you know, really squarely out of the spotlight, I think it's pretty clear to see that the only thing that would draw them out is RSVPing for the Queen's birthday party.
No excuse for missing that one, that's for sure. What's next, Michelle?
Next up is the first appearance of Prince Edward. Now, Prince Edward is the Queen's youngest son. She has 4 children. He's her 3rd son and youngest. And at the time, what's worth keeping in mind is that the Queen had all 4 of her children at home births. I mean, granted, it was a, you know, palace castle birth, but it was at home. So where royals fans had gotten accustomed to seeing later generations, Diana and Kate walking out onto the steps of the Lindo wing with their newborn baby, at the time, royals fans had not had that kind of big moment. So Prince Edward making his debut on the balcony was his first introduction to the public.
So adorable. Okay, give us another.
So next up is Princess Diana's Trooping the Color debut. We couldn't do a roundup of highlights from Trooping the Color without mentioning Diana, of course. And what was so interesting about her debut is that it actually came before her wedding to Prince Charles, about a month before. And at the time, there was this so-called no ring, no bring policy, which meant that if you weren't already married to a royal family member, you weren't invited to Trooping. But in fact, Diana was invited, and she rode in a carriage alongside Prince Andrew, Charles's brother. And the reason that she was with Andrew and not Charles, her husband-to-be, is because Charles rides on horseback during Trooping the Color. But I want to note that although it was Diana's first appearance at Trooping, that actually wasn't the most remarkable moment from that Trooping. In fact, this is the Trooping when a troubled young teenager, a young man, shot blanks at Queen Elizabeth while she was on horseback. This is back when she rode on horseback. And a lot of people today reflect on her unflinching steeliness as, you know, that being kind of the pinnacle example of that, because the Queen literally does not miss a step on her horse as after someone fires what she didn't know, you know, what they were at the time, and carried on with the rest of the parade. So when you see her on the balcony with Diana, this is after she's been fired at. So
wow.
it's pretty remarkable and impressive.
Keeping calm and carrying on, as always.
Exactly.
Scary stuff. Okay, what's next?
Okay, next up is a special accessory that the Queen wears at every trooping. Now, there has only been one prior trooping, except for this year, of course, that was ever canceled, and that was in 1955. And there was a strike going on at the time, so they called it off. But every other year that the Queen has been in attendance at trooping, she wears a brooch, which is known as the Brigade of Guards brooch. And as we know, the Queen assigns a lot of symbolism and meaning to the accessory she chooses. And in this case, that brooch symbolizes the 5 regiments of the British and Commonwealth armies. And those are the regiments that take turns each year trooping their colors, which we said are their flags, for the Queen. And in fact, those 5 symbols are enclosed in this oval frame. If you're able to ever get up close with a good look at it, it has a Latin phrase which translates to 5 joined as one. And it originally belonged to the Queen's grandmother, Queen Mary, which is, again, one of those perks of being Queen. You get Queen Mary's jewelry.
All right, Michelle, what's last on your list?
Last on my list is the annual sort of wait and see about where everyone is going to be positioned on the balcony. So I guess you could sort of think of this like the ultimate dinner party table, like where everyone's looking where are the name cards, who's sitting closest to the head of the table, who's farthest, all that kind of thing. And there is some meaning attached to how you see the people on the balcony, the family members arranged. Obviously, the Queen and Prince Philip are centered in the middle of the balcony, and you tend to see the direct heirs positioned most closely to the Queen. So that would be Prince Charles, of course, Prince William, obviously, and Prince George. You also see the children in front. That makes sense. We want them to be able to, have an open view of everything, and fans to have a view of them. And there have been so many amazing moments. I have to mention the moment when little Susanna Phillips was scolding Prince George for sort of like, I don't know, being out of line. But it was just one of those candid moments that if we don't have the children's up front, we don't get to see. So it's fun to see those spontaneous moments, of course. And then last year, there was a lot of speculation about why Prince Harry and Meghan Markle were positioned in the back, toward the back of the balcony. And in fact, they were standing really close to the Queen, but behind. And again, that's something we can expect because Harry is not a direct heir.
No slight there, it's just the way it works.
Exactly.
Michelle, such a great list, almost better than the real thing. So glad you could come share it with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon.
The Royal Report will be right back. Welcome back. As we mentioned earlier, today is the start of Royal Ascot, which is normally one of England's biggest and most stylish events of the summer. However, this year, due to COVID-19, there will be no fans in attendance, which means, sadly, no fascinators. But that's not going to stop us from celebrating one of the royal family's favorite hat makers with our latest installment of London Calling.
Hi, I'm Monique Jesson, this is London Calling, and today I'm here with the fabulous A1 Golding. This is the milliner who's responsible for very many hats you've seen. Meghan Markle's worn her designs, Lady Gaga, Kylie Minogue, many others. And today she's going to talk us through all things Royal Ascot related.
Hi, welcome. Royal Ascot is an absolute spectacle for fashion, for hats and for clothes. I think that because there's such a focus of press as well, people really do dress up to the nines and they're looking to have their photograph taken, and they will be splashed across the front pages of the world's news. I've been a couple times to Royal Ascot now, the last 2 years in fact, as I was part of the Royal Ascot Millinery Collective, which is an invitation thing, and it's the best milliners in the UK representing the best hats. I just love being an observer when I'm at Ascot because you really do see the best fashion in the world. I think there are definite trends that happen at Royal Ascot. Obviously the headband is very, very hot at the moment. However, with Royal Ascot, there are dress codes you have to abide by depending on the enclosure you're in. So for instance, the royal enclosure, you must have a hat that is over 10 centimeters in diameter, and it's got to cover the crown of your head. So a headband really isn't appropriate for that. However, you can wear a headband to the Queen Anne or the village enclosures. This is actually part of my Spring/Summer 20 collection, and it's a piece that is really kind of screams Ascot. I have done it in a natural cinema with this kind of acidy yellow, but I'm actually going to do it in a monochrome color palette as well, because I think this really kind of screams Eliza Doolittle.
So this is a gorgeous hat that A1 has put on me. We're just pretending I'm going to Royal Ascot. Tell me a little bit about this hat, A1.
Well, firstly, I think it looks amazing on you. I think the color, that baby blue, really brings out your eyes. I think this is a lovely piece that you could wear to a Royal Ascot, you could wear to a wedding. I think it would go really well with a pastel or a white dress. I think that like a summer frock, you know, so I'm really thinking high summer with this.
So fun, it's so comfortable.
This is on a headband.
Full on whimsical fairy tale.
This is Royal Ascot in a hat, for sure.
I love it. It's so light as well, it's amazing.
It should be light, it should be effortless.
And so what sort of woman would wear this hat to Royal Ascot? It's quite adventurous.
Well, I think someone who wants to stand out. You know, just the very nature of hats is, you know, you are going to get noticed, and especially in this big fluffy number.
So thank you A1 for showing me around today. It's been so much fun, and thank you for letting me try on some hats.
Thank you so much for coming. It's been an absolute pleasure.
This is Monique Jesson, and this is London Calling.
That was People London correspondent Monique Jesson, who, as always, shot the entire segment on her phone. Good job, Monique. And if you're wondering why she wasn't social distancing, that's because it was filmed earlier in the year, pre-COVID. All right, we need to take a quick break, but the Royal Report will be right back. Welcome back. It's now time for our social media minutes with our social media correspondent, Gillian Fleischman. Gillian, how's it going?
Hi, Sharon. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me back.
So what do you have for us today?
There were some super fun posts this week. Last Wednesday, in honor of Prince Philip's 99th birthday, all of the royal channels posted special messages to honor the Duke. The royal family Instagram shared a bunch of photos of the prince with the Queen throughout their marriage. The Kensington Royal page posted pics of Kate and William with Philip, and Princess Eugenie shared a photo from her wedding that included her grandfather. My favorite was posted by Charles on the Clarence House page and featured father and son riding in a boat some time ago. Love all of these photos. Last Thursday, the Kensington Royal page shared a message from Kate thanking everyone who has taken part in her Hold Still photography project. She said she has seen so many amazing images and shared why some of them stood out to her. That same day, the Duchess posted even more photo submissions to the Kensington Royal story. All of them are so moving. Last Saturday, the royal family's Instagram story gave a behind-the-scenes look at the Queen's birthday ceremony at Windsor Castle this past weekend. In addition to seeing the Welsh Guards marching on their way to the ceremony, we also got a bird's-eye view of their military precision during the big moment. Love of the Queen made it a point to include her Instagram followers in her birthday celebrations. And finally, this past Monday, the Clarence House Insta story celebrated British Flowers Week by giving followers a closer look at the Duchess of Cornwall's flower vase, which was full of tons of flowers, including poppies and tulips. They also highlighted the work of charity Floral Angels, which recycles flowers for big events to make smaller bouquets for community groups. They shared a video from the organization with tips about how to make a great bouquet at home. What a fun summer activity! And that's your social media minute.
All right, great work today, Gillian. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sharon.
All right, Royal Watchers, that's our show for today. Remember to follow People on Twitter to watch the latest episodes of The Royal Report, streaming every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. I'm Sharon Carpenter. Stay safe, keep calm, and carry on.